أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. We were discussing verse number 124 of Surah Baqarah about the station of Imamah in the Quran. The verse says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذ ابتلى إبراهيم ربه بكلمات فأتمهن قال إني جاعلك للناس إماما قال ومن ذريتي قال لا ينال أحد الظالمين. And when his Lord tested Abraham with certain words and he fulfilled them, he said, I'm making you the Imam of mankind. He said, and from among my descendants. God said, my pledge does not extend to the unjust. We discussed a little bit about the meaning of kalimat. What were these kalimat by which Ibrahim was tested? And he could fulfill them. If you remember, we said that these kalimat were commands, because commands come through kalimat. There were certain commands which came to Ibrahim, and Ibrahim could fulfill them. Atammahunna, it's from tamam. Tamam means he fully afforded to complete them, to do them. It was the full compliance, full completion of the kalimat which made the Ibrahim to become Imam. Now, having this in mind, because this full completion and complete fulfillment is very important here, that I will talk later on. Now, I said that certain views have been suggested for these kalimat. I mentioned the view of Hassan al-Basri. He was tested by worshipping stars, and the moon, the sun, and also by circumcision, by slaughtering his son, and by being thrown into fire. And I said why this does not consistently apply to kalimat. Now there's another hadith which is very common, and most of the commentators have mentioned this. And it is reported from Qatada, who is one of the very prominent early tabi'un among the mufassirin, and also one of the reports from Abdullah ibn Abbas, Ihda al-Riwayatain and Ibn Abbas. This is also mentioned in Majma' al-Bayan of Sheikh Tabrasi rahmatullahi alayh. This view says that these kalimat were certain qualities, certain actions that Allah made obligatory on Ibrahim. And he, of course, fulfilled them. And this, as this is a very common view, most of the commentators have mentioned this as one of the views about kalimat. It has come in different wordings, different versions. Here the version which is mentioned in Majma' al-Bayan, it says, أَنَّهَا أَشْرُ خِصَالٍ 10 qualities. فَرْضًا فِي شَرْعِهِ سُنَّةً فِي شَرِيعَتِنَا. It is wajib, obligatory in his sharia, in Ibrahim's sharia. It is sunnah in our sharia, not obligatory, but it's very good to do, very much recommended. And then it says, al-mazmaza wal-istinshaq wa farq al-ra's wa qass al-sharib wa-siwak fi-al-ra's. 5 of these obligations are to be done in the head. It's about the head. That is gurgling, madmaza, istinshaq, sniffing water to cleanse the nose. فرق الرأس, splitting the hair while combing. قص الشارب, cutting the mustache short. السواك, brushing the teeth. These 5 are in the ras. And then there are 5 in badan, in the body. حلق العانة ونتف الإبط, removing extra hairs from the body. تقليم الأظفار, cutting nails. والاستنجاء بالماء, washing with water after toilet. والختان, circumcision. It has come in other ways as well that these are, of course, the religion of Hanifiya. Religion of Hanifiya is this. These 10 together makes the religion of Hanifiya. Now, I would like to really question this. Is this not making the whole idea of Imamah so light and Hanifiya so worthless? I mean, using these hygienic actions, or doing these hygienic actions, does this really might make someone want to become Hanif? And if he is commanded to do these things, by doing them, who will become the Imam? I don't want to underestimate the importance of these. Of course, if these were not there, we would have understood how important they are in terms of hygiene, in terms of upkeeping the health of the body. However, this, as it says, that it is just a sunnah in our Sharia. How it will become Hanifiyya? And the Prophet, peace be upon him, in the Quran all the time says that I am following the religion of Hanifiyya. Does it mean that I'm just doing these 10 things? Well, this is apparently, I think there's a confusion here. The confusion is that, yes, these were actually something that Allah made a sunnah for Ibrahim. Although we may say, how come did not Nuh alayhi salam practice these things? Is that not possible? That these are just sort of emphasized for Ibrahim alayhi salam. As I said, there should have been something lost in these narrations. Otherwise, how could these be the kalimat by which Ibrahim was tested and he fulfilled them, and then Allah said, Inni ja'iluka linnasi imama? These could be done by anyone. So, we reject this. However, maybe, as I said, there is confusion here. Let me go through another hadith. There is a hadith in Tafseer Ali ibn Ibrahim rahmatullah alayh from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. That hadith as well, I think, is just, it should be a piece of a longer hadith, but we don't have it. I tell you why I think it's a piece of a longer hadith. روى علي بن إبراهيم بن هاشم عن الصادق عليه السلام, that about these kalimat. What are the kalimat? The Imam alayhi salam says, أنه ما ابتلاه الله به في نومه من ذبح ولده إسماعيل. It is what Allah tested him in his dream. That is the revelation in dream, of course. The dream of Anbiya is revelation. And what he said was that, Ya bunayya inni ara fil manam anni azbahuk. I see repeatedly in my dream that I slaughter you. That means this is a revelation coming to me. So this was a test. In his dream, in revelation, it was a command. فَأَتَمَّهَا Ibrahim. Ibrahim fulfilled that. وَأَزَمَ عَلَيْهَا. He resolved to do it. We know that eventually he didn't do it because Allah stopped him, but he resolved to do it. وَسَلَّمَ لَأَمْرِ اللَّهِ. Submitted to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for that, Allah gave him the thawab. إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. I make you the Imam of mankind. Then, now the relation of this one with the previous view, ثُمَّ أَنزَلَ عَلَيْهِ الْحَنِيفِيَّةِ. Then Allah revealed to him the precepts of Hanifiyya. وَهِيَ الطَّهَارَةِ. It was purity. So, Hanifiyya, or those 10 matters, were not the tests that Ibrahim went through. These were revealed to him after the test. And after he was appointed as the Imam. So he says, after the test, now of course the test could not have been just this one. As I said, that's why I said this hadith may have been cut short. Because Allah says, بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنْ. He fulfilled all of them. It was not just one test. It was different tests. ثُمَّ أَنزَلَ عَلَيْهِ الْحَنِيفِيَّةِ. Then Allah revealed to him the precepts of Hanifiyya, which is purity, 10 items of purity, 5 in the head, 5 in the body. فَأَمَّا الَّتِي فِي الرَّأْسِ. Those which are in the head, أخذ الشارب وإعفاء اللحى وتم الشعر والسواك والخلال. Which is this is a bit different from what was mentioned in hadith of Qatada. That cutting the mustache, that the 5 which is in the head, leaving the beard to grow for men, and combing the hair, and sawak wal khilal, brushing the teeth and picking the teeth after the food. And the ones which are in badan, circumcision, which of course was a very important matter. It was a considerable sort of act. And cutting the nail, غسل الجنابة والطهور بالماء. And washing after toilet with water. فهذه الحنيفية الطاهرة or ظاهرة التي جاء بها إبراهيم. It has not been abrogated. It will not be abrogated until the day of judgment. However, apparently, then Ali ibn Ibrahim himself adds, وهو قوله واتبع ملة إبراهيم حنيفا. This is why when Allah says, follow Millat Ibrahim Hanif, again, Hanifiyya is something to do with creed, with belief, with actions, with self-purity, with purity of the soul. These are just certain precepts for purity of the body. This cannot be Hanifiyya. These are certain acts. Like for example, in Islam we say that we have ghusl al-janaba, and then when we want to somehow introduce Islam to people, say Islam is ghusl al-janaba. How is that possible? That's why I say there is a confusion here. Okay, so إِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنْ. These kalimat are not these precepts. So what else? Again, it's reported from Abdullah ibn Abbas that these kalimat are manasikul hajj. That means Allah tested Ibrahim by telling them, you perform Hajj, and after he performed Hajj, he appointed him as the Imam. قال إني جعلك للناس إماما. He fulfilled it. Well, all of us perform Hajj. Does that mean all of us should be appointed as Imam? You know, many a time, if a report is given from Abdullah ibn Abbas, we shouldn't immediately think that the attribution is correct, because everyone who tried to establish a view, in Tafseer especially, they attributed to Abdullah ibn Abbas because he was Hibrul Ummah, he was the true scientist in Tafsir al-Quran, and who better than him if we wanted to forge a view to attribute it to Abdullah ibn Abbas. That's why we see contradictory views have been reported from Abdullah ibn Abbas. Okay, let's put that aside. Cannot be. I say cannot be because Imamah is such a position, and the tests should actually somehow be paramount, be equal to this position. Now, Abu Ali al-Jubba'i, the great Mu'tazili scholar and a great Mufassir, from whom Sheikh Tusi rahmatullah alayh quotes a lot in his Tafsir al-Tibyan, he says that أراد بذلك كل ما كلفه من طاعاته العقلية والشرعية. Everything which is made obligatory of Ibrahim, whether it's ta'atul aqliya or shar'iyya. Aqliya means that, for example, our aql, our intellect says that dhulm is bad, lying is bad, taking people's money is bad. These are taklifatu aqliya, and shar'iyya, like the way we should worship and other things. Well, that doesn't add anything to our knowledge, actually. And if that is the case, all Anbiya are given that obligation. Even every Muslim is given that obligation. So this doesn't add much. Now, let's come to another view, which I think is the most reasonable view suggested in this, in the interpretation of this verse, and something which we can understand in terms of these kalimat, and itmamul kalimat, atammahunna, fulfilled them to its full extent. This is the meaning of atammahunna, isn't it? Now, this is a view again reported from Abdullah ibn Abbas through Ikramah. This view has been reported in almost every tafsir from Abdullah ibn Abbas, in Sunni and Shia. You go to Bayzawi, Anwar al-Tanzil, go to Sheikh Tusi Tibyan, go to Tabrasi Majmu' al-Bayan, they have all mentioned this view. So it's a credible view. And also, it's a view that one thinks that maybe the source of this view is not Ibn Abbas himself. It may have come from a higher source of knowledge, who's Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Certainly Abdullah ibn Abbas was a student of Amirul Mu'mineen. All Mufassirin, great Mufassirin among the Sahaba, like Ubay ibn Ka'b, like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, they all referred to Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. No one ever said he had more knowledge than Imam Ali in Tafseer. Once Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was saying that had I known anyone more knowledgeable than myself to Tafseer, I would have gone to learn from him. And then someone mentioned to him, what about Ali ibn Abi Talib? He said, haven't I gone to him? That means, yes, of course I have gained knowledge from him. So, as I said, this hadith is so deep, so susceptible of reflection, that one may think, although Abdullah ibn Abbas doesn't mention, or the hadith which is here doesn't mention where Abdullah ibn Abbas got this view, one can actually think this has come from a higher source of knowledge. Now, the hadith is very old. It's not something, it's mentioned in most of the credible books. Tafsir al-Tabari, you know, Tabari, his tafsir, he wrote his tafsir in the 3rd century and used, of course, older tafsir. However, his tafsir is a sort of watershed, a turning point in the tafsir literature, in the history of tafsir, since, of course, the method he used was absolutely a novel method, something that no one before him had ever used. Although, of course, as someone said, he was mad of reporting, and he used to report whatever he had heard, and that's why there are lots of very unacceptable hadith in an athar in his tafsir. However, as I said, that doesn't actually make anything take away any merit from the tafsir that he has provided as a novel style of tafsir. Now, he reports this hadith from Ibn Abbas, from Ikramah, from Ibn Abbas, through certain chains of narration, through this 3 or 4 chains of narration, different chains of narration. He reports it from him. And as I said, later on, all other commentators have used the hadith to explain these kalimat. So let's see. وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ. When Allah tested Ibrahim with certain words, that means commands, and he fulfilled them. Now, Ibn Abbas says, when he comes to this, of course, he mentions other views. He mentions that Al-Hanifiyya, the 10 commands, 5 in the head, 5 in the body, and all. He says these are different views. However, he mentions this as his preferred view. فقال بعضهم هي شرائع الإسلام. These kalimat are shara'i al-Islam. In fact, before Allah legislating Sharia for Islam, as I said, Islam is the deen of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He was tested to see if these Sharia could be applied in human soul. هي شرائع الإسلام وهي 30 سهما. There are 30 parts in this Sharia. 30 سهما. So we may say these kalimat were 30 of the most important precepts, concepts, conceptual commands to Ibrahim alayhi salam, that he fulfilled all of them based on this hadith. There were 30 kalimats. Then he says, قال ابن Abbas says, لم يبتل أحد بهذا الدين فأقامه إلا إبراهيم. No one were ever tested with these sharia of Islam and he could actually uphold them except Ibrahim alayhi salam. ابتلاه الله بكلمات فأتمهن. Allah tested them with these kalimat, he fulfilled them. فكتب الله له البراءة. Then Allah wrote for him al-bara'a, meaning that he has actually fulfilled, complied with these obligations. Al-bara'a means that bara'atu dhimma. He complied. Where did he write the bara'a for him? In the Quran. How? In Surah Al-Najm he says, وَإِبْرَاهِيمَ الَّذِي وَفَّى. Ibrahim, the one who fulfilled, who had wafa to what I commanded him. So what are these which are so difficult that no one but Ibrahim could actually afford, and no one can ever afford until the day of judgment except the chosen progeny of Ibrahim alayhi salam? What are these? So, فَكَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَهُ الْبَرَاءَةِ. Allah wrote bara'a for him, bara'atu dhimma, and he said, وَإِبْرَاهِيمَ الَّذِي وَفَّى. And Ibrahim, the one who fulfilled to the very end of his obligation. And, okay, what are these? وهي عشر في سورة البراءة. 10 of these are mentioned in Surah Al-Bara'ah, Surah Tawbah. وعشر في الأحزاب. 10 of them are mentioned in Surah Al-Ahzab. وعشر في سورة المؤمنين وسأل سائل بعذاب واقع. And 10 of them are mentioned in Surah Al-Mu'mineen and in Surah Al-Ma'arij, سأل سائل بعذاب واقع. These are the 30 parts of the Sharia for which Ibrahim was tested. He fulfilled it, and then he became the Imam of human beings. Okay, let's see what are them. Of course, we cannot finish them in this session. I just mentioned the ones in Surah Al-Bara'ah tonight. What do we have in Surah Bara'ah? In Surah Bara'ah, verse 112. As I said, this coming from Abdullah ibn Abbas is a bit strange, because this means that Abdullah ibn Abbas is actually unveiling a knowledge which no one else has, because this is not something that Abdullah ibn Abbas could have known. That's why I say, we know that many a time Abdullah ibn Masud, Abdullah ibn Abbas, they suggested and mentioned views from Imam Ali alayhi salam, but they did not mention that they had it from Imam Ali alayhi salam. Of course, because of the situation of the time, because somehow the currents, social currents were against Imam Ali alayhi salam, but the knowledge was spread. That's the important thing. The knowledge was spread. And no matter whether we are Sunni or Shia, we are actually benefiting from the knowledge of Imam Ali alayhi salam in the tafsir of the Quran. No one ever claims that they had a better knowledge of tafsir than Imam Ali. If you go to all the books of al-Quran, you go to al-Itqan of Jalaluddin al-Suyuti, you go to al-Burhan of Burhanuddin Zarkashi, they say that among all the companions of the Prophet, there were 4 companions who were experts in tafsir of the Quran. Expert, just knowing some parts of the Quran, or memorizing some surahs of the Quran, or having asked a couple of questions about certain surahs of the Quran, that's something different. But an expert who can explain everything about every verse. When was it revealed? What was its meaning? Was it a nasikh or a mansukh or things like that? Now, there were 4. Ubay ibn Ka'b rahmatullah alayh, to whom we are very much indebted for the copy of the Quran that we read today. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud rahmatullah alayh. Abdullah ibn Abbas, who was of course junior compared to them, rahmatullah alayh, and Amirul Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib, and everyone confesses that the knowledge of Ali ibn Abi Talib surpassed all those. This is not a Shi'i view. Of course, in Shi'i view, we know that Imam had the knowledge of Imamah, the ta'wil and tafsir of the Quran, what was with him. That's a different matter. As Shias, of course, we have a different view of Imam Ali alayhi salam. However, this is not a Shia view. This is the view of all Muslims, that Ali ibn Abi Talib had this paramount knowledge of the Quran. And apart from him, then there was another 3 who were all actually deferring to him. And then, of course, they said after that there were another 10, in which they include the other Khulafa and some other people. And then they emphasize, however, their knowledge compared to those 4 is very limited. So here, as I said, this knowledge, I don't think this knowledge has come from Ibn Abbas himself. It is something he should have learned from Imam Ali alayhi salam. So 3 parts, 10 in Surah Bara'ah, 10 in Surah Ahzab, and 10 in Surah Mu'minun and Ma'arij. Inshallah, I will discuss them in our next session. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.